Welcome to What's Underfoot, the American Home Services Group and Commercial USA podcast. My name is Tony Wright, and this podcast is where we sit down with people supporting, shaping, and moving the floor covering industry forward. Each conversation is designed to get to know an industry leader and provide insight into leadership and success that our members might apply to their businesses to become stronger, smarter, and more nimble. Today, I am joined by Scott Maslowski with Daltile. But before we get into the core of our conversation, Scott, how about you share something about yourself that most people don't know?
Wow, isn't that a nice question to start with? Let's go with. So, as a young kid, I went to Catholic school, and for 7 years, 4 days a week, my parents dropped me off at a convent for piano lessons for 7 years.
Okay.
And my biggest regret today is that I didn't keep up with it.
So you can't sit down at the piano today?
I can barely play chopsticks now, but I do regret. I didn't realize at the time what was in front of me, but that's something that I definitely do not share that a lot. But now it's out there.
Yeah, there it is. So the would-be pianist, Scott Maslowski, is with us today. Interesting, my mother taught piano for years, and I don't know why, but she never tried to teach me. That may tell you something about why. And I was saying, I regret. I wish I could sit down and play. So our kids took piano, but anyway, I was thinking that you might throw out that you once went on stage in red leather pants and a bandana and sang the Lover Boy, but you didn't want to share that apparently.
Well, now the words. That was definitely not one of my fun moments, but definitely had a lot of fun with it for sure.
Well, let me give you a proper introduction, Scott. So Scott is the Executive Vice President of SSC Sales and Operations for Daltile LLC, a subsidiary of Mohawk Industries. In this role, he leads SSC Sales and Operations, along with commercial, new residential, and residential remodel segments, and installation product sales across the installation. That's a mouthful. That's a lot. Scott began his career in 1991 working as summer help in an American Olean wall tile plant. Following his graduation from college, he was hired into the Armstrong Management Training Program, beginning with American Olean in Baltimore. There, he quickly advanced through a series of progressively senior management roles, overseeing sales service centers. And after Daltile's acquisition of American Olean in 1995, Scott's leadership and operational expertise led to expanded responsibilities within Daltile, including serving as Regional Vice President of Sales for both Mid-Atlantic and the Southwest regions. In 2017, Scott was promoted to Vice President of Sales Service Centers and was elevated to Senior Vice President of Sales for Daltile in 2019. This past year, 2025, his role expanded further to include oversight of SSC operations and SSC sales technology. And for those that don't know, Daltile is the largest manufacturer of tile and marketer of tile and natural stone countertop products used in residential and commercial spaces throughout North America. Scott holds a Bachelor of Science degree in economics from Penn State and a Master's of Business Administration from the University of Phoenix. He's been married to Amy for 31 years, and they are the proud parents of 3 children. Kate, who's 26, Hannah, and Luke, who are both 21. So thanks for joining us, Scott.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Well, we'll see about that. But I did notice last week on LinkedIn, you just celebrated or posted 34-year anniversary with Daltile.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, it's flown by. It's I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing at this point when that pops up. So.
Well, in our industry, it's said all the time that once you get in, you cannot get out, right? So you've modeled that well. You look too young to have been doing this for 34 years, but we actually got in about the same time. I think it was 1990. I ended up getting into this industry, and here I am still in it as well. So I guess the maxim holds true, right? Get in, absolutely. You can't get out. Well, we touched on the fact that you got started in the industry in college, kind of as summer help in a tile plant. Maybe you could share a little bit more about your thoughts when you first got into floor covering industry and kind of what that progression looked like through the training that you went through with American Only.
Sure. Yeah. So I was lucky enough to get a summer job. I'm second generation. So my father was in the industry. He was a plant manager for American Only, so up through the manufacturing side, and ran the Daltile plant in Lansdale. And so the summer before, I went to the beach for the summer and had a hell of a time in Stone Harbor. And so that last summer before graduation, my dad was like,
You got to work.
You got to work. You got to get a real job. And so, so I went in the plant and started there. And as a unionized plant, my father was plant manager. Needless to say, I ended up with a lot of the grunt jobs and all that. But it was a great start. But I did not think I would be doing this today. I really thought I would be up on Wall Street, investment banking, or something along those lines. Is where I thought my degree and my passion was going to take me. But
yeah. So you didn't go into this economics with, hey, I'm going to get this economics degree and I'm into the tile business, right?
No, the complete opposite. I was just like, what? No way. So I didn't even really clearly understand what I was doing in the factory, right? So what it really meant.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, as I graduated, as you mentioned, I had gone to Penn State, and at the time, American Only, and was owned by Armstrong World Industries, which was based in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So, quote, I had a little bit of tile experience. I was a Penn Stater. Armstrong was a big recruiter of Penn Staters, needed a job right away. And so I was lucky enough to get into their training program. And then that's where my journey really started. So I got assigned to Baltimore, Maryland. It was an interesting period. Back then, of course, this is not a lot of technology compared to what we have today, right? So I had to handwrite out where I wanted to live, and I had said the Northeast or the Mid Atlantic, and so I got assigned to Baltimore for a brief amount of time, and then about 4 or 5 months later, a couple of executives, and in fact, an old AHSG person, John Maslowski, was my regional vice president, I guess, at the title back then. Came in, sat me down, and told me I was doing a great job, but had some news for me, and that I was being transferred to or promoted to Palm Springs. And so I'm just going to completely embarrass myself here. So I sat back in the chair, digested it for a minute. I'm like, well, this is way in the Northeastern Mid-Atlantic. But I said, okay, I guess it'd be okay to live in Florida. And I'll never forget John and another gentleman sitting there shaking their heads going, son, you're going to California.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So needless to say, I went out there, American Only, and we opened up a branch out there, sales service center, SSC as we call them today. Opened up a brand new branch out there. I was out there for 18 months or so, and was given an opportunity with AO to move up to move to Las Vegas. Still was kicking and screaming a little bit. Still in my mind, was trying to get back east, right? So I guess maybe a little bit further east, but not really what I envisioned. But took the job, went there, and then Daltile and American Only emerged. I believe that it was 1995 that we merged together, and through that ended up a rep, and then restructured somewhere in there, and ended up running the Las Vegas branch for a couple of years. And then,
so, was there like a point in time maybe where you in your own mind said, "Hey, I guess I'm in this industry for good"?
I would say it's such a great question. I don't know if there's ever any one thing, but where I really probably started to fall in love with it was in Las Vegas. It started to meet some customers really on a personal level that are still great friends of mine today. And that was really my first understanding of what the industry was about, that it was relationship driven, in that, you could make friends along with customers for life out of this. And so that, and I was lucky enough to pair up with some people that were my age coming up through the ranks, and I'm out there, and it just really is where where my love really started to ramp up for it, I would say, at that point. And then as I went to probably the summer of 2000 is when I was offered an opportunity to come back to the corporate office for the first time, to come back to run the
And that was
outreach.
in Dallas.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so I came back to Dallas, Texas. And at that point, it's probably where it started to, I would say, expedite that, hey, this could be more than just a job. This is starting to turn into maybe a career.
Well, let me ask you about mentors or influences in your life. Can you share an impactful mentor or advisor, or maybe a specific piece of advice that you still use today?
Oh, yeah, that's another great question. And I'll be honest with you, I could never limit it to one person, right? So, and I would be remiss if, first of all, my wife of 31 years has been unbelievable, right? From an advisor and support role and guidance. And I would not be sitting here today without her. So that goes without, because, listen, she is the CEO of the household, and so I get a lot of tips from that executive, right?
I could echo that.
But from a professional point of view, I really do feel like I've learned from people all along the way. But so I will say, if one that stands out to me is Harold Turk, and a legend within the ceramic tile industry, longtime veteran, in his approach, and he took a chance on me when I was 27 years old and we had restructured the business to go run the Las Vegas SSC, which was one of the largest stores in the country. And we were lucky enough in time to make it the largest store in the country for us. But really, when I turned about 30, he tapped me to come back to the corporate office. And he really took the time to teach me left from right and teach me business acumen and professional executive presence and how to handle yourself and how to act and when to not talk and how to just listen. And really, what it's all said and done, what I took away from him more than anything else, which I use to this day, is every day, as I mentioned earlier, our approach is whenever we need to do something, it works from the customer backwards. I don't wake up today and go, I'm going to do this, and the customer is going to bear the brunt of it, right? I need to understand, what does the customer need or want? Or what do I think I want? And what is the impact of the customer? And then I work backwards from there. And Harold was such a tremendous teacher of that you have to think the customer first. And so I won't never forget that guy.
Yeah, putting the customer first in an idiom, it's often referred to, but it's not a practice that is well executed in a lot of cases.
No, you can't. You get caught up in the moment. So you have to take a deep breath, take a step back, and ask yourself again. It's what to start that day every day about the customer. Start there. Take it back, take a breath, work backwards. Listen, we all have pressures from above or sideways that we need this or that, but you just cannot lose focus of what's most important.
Yeah.
So,
Well, appreciate you sharing that. Harold was actually instrumental in our organization getting started as well. So similar, he had put faith in Bruce Weber when he was launching the American Home Services Group, at the time American Hard Services Group, and so that was really, he was instrumental in our organization 25 years ago also. So had that common thread anyway. So anyway, interesting.
yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's when I first came back to Dallas. I was in those very early.
Oh, is that right?
days. And listen, I didn't add any value, but I was lucky enough to. I was able enough to sit there and for a fair amount of those conversations between Harold and Bruce, and it's just such a perfect example of Harold listening to what Bruce's vision was, and for us to figure out a way that to make it work. And here we are, 25 years later.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it has worked. It has worked. So let's talk a little bit about inspiration. So, one of the things I want to ask you about challenges, because we all go through challenges or setbacks. And so I wonder if there's a significant setback or even a failure that you faced. Maybe you can share kind of what happened and what you learned, and most importantly, how today you're informed from that experience.
Sure. Yeah, I think we all experience them, whether it's daily, weekly, etc. But a big one for me was early into, I'd say, this executive role that of overseeing the sales. I guess it was probably 2019. We lost a large production building. We lost the RFP, and it was significant volume to the organization, and my heart sank, and I felt like I had completely failed, and I was absolutely devastated by the news. But then that day, as I sat with teammates or executive peers, it became the so what now what, right? So we lost them. So what are we going to do about this, right? We can't feel sorry for ourselves. So we set a path up. All right, we lost this volume over here, but here's options A, B, C, D, and E of things we can do to offset it. And quite frankly, when you look back, by not panicking and just understanding the situation and say, all right, what's the solution to what has happened? We actually end up becoming better off by the loss by what we gained through it. But as a younger executive, I didn't necessarily realize that, and I thought my world had ended that day. But I really have come to really to understand that now.
Yeah, I think certainly when face how you respond to a setback or where you feel like it's even failure. If you, to your point, can kind of, hey, let's pause, survey the situation, look at what other opportunities or how we can shift, right? Kind of refocus, and that applies to so many things. Obviously, not just business and the loss of an account, but so many things in our lives, right? Just pause, evaluate, and make a plan. Make a plan to go forward. So.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, I use the so what now what. And really where that so what now what came from was so my son was a pitcher going up through the ranks.
Yeah.
And they were in it was a district championship game. And the he was pitching tight game, 0-0. The bottom of the fourth inning, if I'm not mistaken, and he gives up a home run, right? And of course, his parents are just devastated, right? You're in the stands. Of course, and everybody's staring at you like that's with the pitch, right? But I'll never forget the coach could have gone out to the mound, could have made it bigger. From the dugout, he yells out, "So what? Now what?"
Yeah.
And they proceeded to win the game 2-1. Ironically, it wasn't bragging from years ago. They ended up having the game win again out of all that. But that's secondary to the so what now what, right? The coach didn't overreact. He didn't panic. He just stay cool. So so I'll never forget that. So as our organization knows, because I use it on a lot.
Yeah.
Now so
that's good. Yeah, that's good. So when you step away from work now, number one, are you able to disconnect? And how do you reset or recharge either, daily, weekly, or on a, maybe a more extended period, but do you disconnect or?
Yeah, I think as much as anybody can truly disconnect with, iPhones, etc. But yeah, no, I really try hard. I'm at an interesting stage in my personal life. We're empty nesters now. Our kids, our oldest has graduated, and then two are in college still, and so really try to stay locked in at work as much as possible, but at home be present for my wife, right? And so we're almost like dating again. And so I do try to disconnect. At the same time, with our kids around the country, we're able to spend a lot of time with them, doing things with their either adult lives or collegiate lives. So yeah, I'm able to disconnect from that aspect. But I would say as far as a daily routine, I'm I'm an avid Peloton person. So
Okay.
my wife got it for me probably what, 5 years ago, 5, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I really try to do some sort of Peloton
Nice.
workout
Yeah.
5 days a week. So that's my day. I get up between 4:30 and 5 in the morning, and that's how I start my day. I start my day by doing some sort of Peloton fitness,
Yeah.
and so it's
I can relate. I get on a bike. I have a trainer and, try to ride on the road, but I spend a lot of time on my trainer too. I don't do it in the morning. I'm an evening rider. Physical activity helps, doesn't it? I think there's a lot to be said for physical activity, not just in your fitness, but I think mentally. I think it gives you time for clarity and focus and, I don't know, sweat things out maybe a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's just part of my daily routine. Because to your point, it does start my day. It does bring clarity to what's up, what's on docket for the day, in the week, in the month, etc. And just it just brings a sense of serenity and clarity to start it. So.
Mhm. Well, I wonder if there's something that you've learned recently or not, maybe not so recently, from a book or a person or an experience, and something that really changed how you think or approach business or leadership in business. I don't know if you're much of a reader or,
Yeah, I would tell you, you're always evolving, right? So, but I'd say in the last year, probably the last 18 months, I've spent a lot of time around a singular word that I would call disruption. And I happened to have a speaker talk at one of our. I met him. He spoke first at one of our regional meetings, and I've had him a few times. His name's Morris Morrison.
yeah,
Tremendous speaker, right? So
very good.
yeah, really, really good. And anyways, he had a book tied around disruption. He spoke around disruption,
Mhm.
and then that really got me going down this path as I looked at our organization of how to become a disruptor in the marketplace. Even though we're the largest one in our segment,
Yeah.
I didn't want to be the one being disruptive, right? So it's how do I lead an organization to be the disruptor, not the one being disrupted? So I really went on this personal journey or professional journey, let's call it, of reading Morris's book, talking to Morris, met with other companies outside of the flooring industry to understand how they were doing things, how they were structured, how they went about motivating their salespeople. Then it proceeded to come back and read another book, which is called Disrupt Everything and Win. And interesting enough, it's which I didn't know. You always all learn something. It's by James Patterson, who was a co-author with another guy named Patrick Levin. And James Patterson, who we all know is a fiction writer, and the firm, and all those things he's wrote over time. But ironically enough, he was actually a CEO of a very large advertising agency early, and which I never knew until I read his book.
Yeah.
And the book was given to me by one of my direct reports. And so that's really what I've been channeling through our organization. We've done some realignment and some things recently, and it was really all premised on this whole disruption about how do we change our offense to be more aggressive? How do we win quicker? How do we, capture share in an environment that's maybe not as robust as we want? So, yeah. So, if I answer your question, it's really tied around disruption right now. That's what I'm just trying to learn how to lead a disruptive company, but disruptive in the way that we channel it in a positive way that ultimately allows the customer to win, allows our associates, of course, to win, and the overall organization.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, let me ask you this: looking ahead, what excites you most in where the future, where the floor covering industry or the tile industry more specifically is headed? Is there something you look ahead and say, "Wow, this is something I'm really excited about what's coming"? Or
Yeah, it's always evolving, right? It's just that in general, everything's changing so fast, but it's exciting at the same time. I would say if you look at it from an aesthetic point of view, tiles are getting bigger, they're getting more visual. So that piece of it's really fascinating. And then for me, the other piece of it is some people are scared of technology, but I'm actually excited about how technology, AI, can be brought into our businesses and make us more productive.
Very analog business too, right? The flooring industry.
Absolutely. I would not say we're the leading in regards to tech, which come a long ways, right? So I don't want to shortchange, but we got a long ways to go. So, but I just think that's what excites me is how, how does AI help us? And not just that tile, but the industry, and how does it make us, faster and sexier and just the overall whole category to grow. And so there's so much out there. And so spending a fair amount of time when I'm not disrupted, spending a lot of time on the technology side.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the unknown is right now as much, especially with AI, we don't know what the impact is going to be. We know it's going to be there. So we're trying to understand, hey, what is that impact going to be? So I would echo that as well. That, I think that technology piece, certainly holds out a lot of promise for the industry, no doubt. It'd be interesting to see how it all plays out. But yeah, that's interesting. And lastly, I guess, sort of try to wrap these up. Is there any specific trends in the flooring industry that you think our members or our listeners should be know might be coming, and whether product or even especially with Daltile or AO Marazzi, what do you see on the horizon that they can look forward to?
Yeah, I think from a product point of view, you're going to, and I don't know what excites people or not. Tiles are getting better, right? So,
I know. I always think that was cool. I remember when tiles first started stretching out. It definitely, it's good, right? From a design aesthetic.
Yeah. So if you go back a decade or so ago, tiles really took a big step forward when we started to roll out this technology that we would call reveal imaging, right? Starting to make things look like a wood tile look like wood. Now today, the next step in that journey is really a lot of 3D technology. So now you're starting to see 3D in regards to textures, and so it's just when you see just the feel of the look now, it's just at a whole new level. So it continues to, I think, be a trend leader. The tile does. I like to say, tile's been around since the beginning of time. Yeah, it's been a market leader from BC to today, and so we like to think that we can continue to be a market leader, whether it be in style and design.
Yeah. Well, and just a really final question: is there an insight, a habit, or decision that our listeners can apply today that might be able to help them be more efficient, effective in their business life?
Well, yes, that's a really good question, and I'll just speak from my personal experience. I guess I would break it into two buckets. One we touched on a little bit. Don't be afraid of technology. You don't need to be a technology expert, but you need to understand what it can do for you and your company to help you move forward, whether it be on the marketing side, on the ordering side, on the advertising side, on just speaking to customers. So I think you have to continue to just, you can't avoid it because it's not going away. Number one, and that's a piece of what I'll say. Number two, which is something I've grown to, especially in the last 15 years or so, to really be a big believer in is, as leaders and companies out in the marketplace here, you've got an obligation to make sure you have a plan, right? You really need to have a 3-year strat plan. And Joe, it's okay to scribble it on a napkin. I don't really care where you put it, but make sure it's relevant and keep it in front of you, and make sure your team understands it, and that you all are working towards it. Doesn't mean it can't change as the year goes on. Things evolve, of course. Anybody who works for me or has worked for me knows that I have a 3-year strat plan, and it sits on my desk every day. So as I talk about thinking about customers and employees, etc., all that is part of the strat plan. And it's always 3 years out. And so that would be what I would always encourage people is don't get caught up in the moment, the tactical side of the business, and really spend some time on the strategy. And I can't emphasize enough, strategies always change, but at least have a roadmap where you want to go.
Great advice.
That would be that's my 2 cents. Maybe it's a nickel.
No, that's really great advice, and certainly applicable to anyone in business today, right? Whether you're a business owner or a manager or an associate, whatever level you find yourself, right? Have a plan.
Absolutely.
Work a plan. I think I heard that from you once.
Oh yeah. Well, listen, listen, yeah, absolutely. Plan your work, work your plan.
Yeah.
Right, and it's the basis of what I do day in and day out.
Well, Scott, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Tony, I appreciate the offer. It's always great to see you. And let's have a great 2026 together.
We're going to. So that was Scott Maslowski with Daltile. And I want to thank you for joining us on What's Underfoot. For more conversations designed to support our members and strengthen the industry, you can follow us at AHSG and Commercial USA on LinkedIn, and you can find us on Instagram at American Home Services Group. So until we have another conversation, have a good day.